All right. Hello, everybody. Checking my legs. God, I'm a fancy man.
Yeah.
Welcome to episode 87 of Conservatish. My name is Peter Feliciano, and you can support this podcast at patreon.com/conservatish. New episode every Monday and Thursday. And let's see what else. Find me on Instagram at Peter_Feliciano. And yeah, I'm very, very excited to have you on the show. This is amazing. This is a palace, sir.
Thank you. Yeah.
Our guest today is Kevin. Do you want a last name and everything?
Kevin Mcgary, yes.
Okay,
yes.
Awesome.
And I'm the chairman of the Frederick Douglass Foundation of California, and I'm on the executive board of the Douglass Leadership Institute, which is a national institute as well.
So what does the Frederick Douglass Institute do?
Frederick Douglass Foundation is so we're policy advocates, but primarily we espouse the conservative legacy of Douglass, and we try to connect current events to accurate history, especially during Douglass's time. And help people connect the dots with the thinking of those who actually did go through some stuff.
Right.
In reality, when you look at today's environment, a lot of us have been very, very blessed to have been born here in America, and we haven't gone through the rigors, the woes, the terrors of those who went through some stuff in the 1800s.
Right.
Douglass just happens to be one of those real pivotal figures in the 1800s that went through some incredible things. His pivot points are just amazing. His story is just astounding. And he's a great patriot, hero, statesman, father, minister. He had so many firsts. First African American bank manager, first African American in a marshal's office, first African American to actually meet a president, right, and be a trusted advisor of 4 additional presidents. He was a multimillionaire in today's dollars. I mean, there's so many things about Douglass's life that we just are completely disconnected from.
Right.
And so we try to help, especially communities of color, urban communities, and especially black pastors, to recognize history, to not be so smitten with the platitudes of one party who would try to say, you deserve this, that, or the other, and we're going to protect you and coddle you and make you perpetual dependents because you deserve it because of what somebody went through.
Infantilizing.
Yeah, infantilizing really an entire community. And so what we try to do is when we meet with pastors and we take a look at current events and we take a look at current issues, reparations could be one of them. We haven't had that conversation yet with some of the pastors we meet with, but we try to connect them with the fact that, okay, what if we looked at this issue through the lens of somebody like Douglass or Booker T. Washington or some of the other great patriots of the past who actually went through the horrors that we like to try to, cudgel, whites over.
Right.
And so we say, Douglass actually said, one of his statements was, give the Negro nothing.
Really?
Except fair play.
Right.
He said, those that want to be helped will be helped.
Right.
But those that want to be left behind, that want to stay where they are, will stay where they are. And, some people look at that statement and say, well, what was really his context? Well, you got to remember, Douglass tried to escape a few times.
Right.
And he ultimately did escape. But one of those, all those other times that failed, it was one of them other brothers that went and told Mr. Master, hey, Freddie about to make a run for it tonight. Right. So what occurred to him with his life experiences was, wait a minute, not everybody really wants to be free.
Okay.
Right. Not everybody really wants to be free.
Right.
We have a lot of people that are, quite comfortable just being a dependent and working for Mr. Master. And we have a lot of people like myself who want to go out and experience the world and actually be a free man. Right. And so he said, it's a mistake for us to give, blanket, reparations, if you will, to everybody, because it'll ruin a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Some people would rather being, if not physical chains, being the chains to a party.
Right.
And we see that now played out today. I mean, his words and his commentary and his narrative behind that is actually prescient when you look at it through the lens of what's been happening over the past few days with these reparations, committees and all of this kind of stuff. So.
And even with welfare, I mean, I find that the subconscious intention seems to be not like even somebody like the Samuel L. Jackson from Django. It's not coming from a place of actually not wanting to be free. It seems to be a subconscious fear. It seems to be like, I don't know what over there looks like. I'd rather stay here because over there might be scary. Over there might be hard work. Over there I might fail. Over there might get rejected. I might as well stay where I'm at because at least I'm comfortable in the crap. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, and with independence comes responsibility. I think that's where you're getting at, right?
Yeah.
And so
absolutely.
Some people would rather be, the whole idea of being wholly responsible for your life,
right.
Not a victim, not an oppressed, cudgeled, sort of
child
type of demographic, but you're actually independent. You actually are going to be responsible for what you do or don't do. That, in some people's mind, is a little bit, that's challenging the very fiber of who they are, because especially for those who have, generationally not had to go out and actually make things happen, right? They just kind of allowed the system to take care of them and provide them with whatever they have or don't have, and they've been, perfectly accepting of that.
And they haven't seen any examples in their life of people who have taken up their bootstraps.
Right, exactly right. And this is why it's so vitally important that we have, the types of changes like school choice programs, and where parents can begin to choose which school that their kid goes to or not, because fundamentally, if you look at the school systems as they are, and you look at especially those that are underperforming compared to national averages, by and large, they're in most of your highly, your very, very dense urban areas that are sort of underfunded and or neglected. Mm-hmm. So you have these kids going to these dilapidated schools. A lot of them are being accosted or abused along the way just to try to get to school, or forced into some sort of gang activity because, of peer pressure and because they have to go through the neighborhood to try to get to the school. Okay. And then so a lot of our students are saying, you know what, it's not worth it to me. I'd rather stay home with mom. I'd drop out. And because, for me to get, practically assaulted and accosted and all of this and, practically have to join a gang to participate in school. And then when I get there, the teachers are really not really teaching me much, or, it's just not worth it. And so we have a big dropout problem. Now, when that happens, what happens with the community is that means that kid's decided to drop out probably because his mother or father or someone who is guardian over him is not actually encouraging him that school is vitally important, number one. And number two, they probably dropped off themselves. So now we have sort of a cycle. This is how the cycle of poverty happens. Right. Whereas on the other side, if we actually did have school choice programs and parents can choose, even if they're a poor parent who doesn't have much themselves, they can choose to put their child in a better school system with teachers that are more committed to actually teaching and helping these children learn and actually excel, then that can actually break the cycle, because then now we have that young man or young lady actually graduating, which then for the kids in their family see, oh, cousin so-and-so just graduated. Oh, right. And actually, cousin so-and-so is going to college. Oh, I can actually go to college. Mm-hmm. We can actually. And so now we're setting perfect examples, great examples for children. If those children don't have those examples, and this is why we have cyclical poverty, because right. it's tacitly accepted. Mm-hmm. And so, as you know, you've grown up in communities like this as well. So I mean,
it's the culture around us that kind of shapes us. You know what I mean? And when, I've found from my experience, I have had great examples and I've had horrible examples. I've had people in my life who gave me something to shoot for, and when I was more mature, made me feel like I'd rather look at over at this other example of somebody who doesn't take care of stuff, lives in this place of lofty dreams and doesn't really work for it. And I'd rather, it's kind of easier sometimes to just, as an example, sit on a bar stool and talk about what fame you're going to have rather than actually do, drive to Hayward, in the middle of the day or, because I'm doing this and then I'm meeting with somebody and then I have work and then I'm going to drive Uber and then I'm going to have a show on Friday and Saturday and Sunday. Like I'm running around trying to do this stuff. It is hard work. Yeah. And it's so much easier to get a Domino's and not Netflix.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've had many examples. We all do. You know? Do you listen? Do you like Larry Elder?
Oh yeah.
He's one of those examples that man. Just like great. Every time I listen to him, I'm like, oh, great! My God, that example of somebody who grew up, surrounded by all kinds of, obviously the example of people who, he tells that story of his friend who had promising athletic ability and decided. Because of his arrogance and because of his fear, he kind of screwed him out of it, himself out of that stuff, and yet he would talk to his mother, and his mother and his father set this bar of like, oh, you're gonna let a word like change your whole life and ruin your vacation, or are you gonna kind of buck up and adult up, you know what I mean? And so I'm grateful to listen to him.
Larry is truly an elder. I mean, he's got a great last name that really matches. Yeah. What God created him to be. He is an elder in this community. He is very well read. He understands history and to the nth degree. Has a great way of putting things in a proper context in today's context, and he has great memory. So he's very quick.
Yes,
and he knows what he's talking about. So Larry Elder is one of those exceptional statesmen for today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you ever listen to Thomas Sowell?
So I've read Thomas Sowell. When I see him, I enjoy his narratives and his contemplations as to what's going on. He's an incredible man. He's a modern day philosopher, in my opinion. He's just one of those rare minds, he's exceptional. Right. I don't listen to him with any regularity. I wasn't aware that whether he has a show or something that he does on a regular basis. But when he does show up, and when I do get an opportunity to listen to him or follow him, I do. Yeah, he's incredible.
Yeah, that he and Larry. Some of my favorite people, even my favorite musicians, Frank Zappa. They usually. The against the grainness is something that really not just piques my interest, but inspires me greatly. Yeah. Part of the reason why I started this whole damn thing. I want to tell the truth, and I want to be around people who, but even Larry or Thomas or Frank Zappa or there are many other great examples. They're not just being contrarian for the sake of being contrarian. Yeah. You know what I mean? They see something and they want to say something about it. They don't want to be, and the worst thing, we were talking about it before, but the shadow banning, like I'm fine if people don't like my podcast. Yeah, I'm fine if people don't like my music and they get turned off. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Sure. But if they don't even have an opportunity to see it, that's what irks me more than anything. Yeah. I don't even know. I don't know how to fight it the right way, the effective way, the smart way, because I don't want to be a Laura Loomer and chain my hand to a Twitter, but I also don't want to just like give up and say, well, I guess I'll just keep playing by their rules because the rules are rigged. I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, leftists are really by and large, they're bullies. Yeah. They are the fascists of the day. Yeah. And no exaggeration, they're the cowardice punks that we used to kick around the schoolyard. No, really.
No, I agree.
I mean, totally you don't have to have a spine, a backbone, or even a normal or a contrarian thought to be a leftist. Right. I mean, it's the easiest thing to do, right? For anybody, is to go with the mob, go with the crowd.
It's an assumed morality. Yeah, it's an assumed
it's
power.
Easy. Right. It's easy. If you have a contrarian thought and you've been raised or you've come up in that ilk, ask David Rubin. I mean, they'll kick you to the curb very, very quickly. Absolutely. So really the most principled people on the planet at the moment are those who are conservative. Mm-hmm. It actually takes a spine, a backbone. It takes the ability to stand up to bullies.
Right.
And, hey, if it calls for it, hey, I'm ready to scrap, hey, bring it.
Yeah.
This is where I stand, period.
Right.
And you're not going to bully me, and you're not going to bully my family or anything like that. And if we got to get down, let's get down.
Right.
But this is where I stand.
Yeah. When I was starting the podcast, I'm half Puerto Rican, and I have gay family members, and I've done a lot of work for the gay community and volunteering and stuff. Yeah. And my ma, she was like, because well, I won't share one thing, but anyway, she said, I was talking about starting this and what my kind of ideas are going to be and what my ideas are, and she warned me not to stand from a place of identity politics, and that's difficult because if they're playing dirty and they're saying, "Oh, racist," but it's like I just want to be like, "Hang on,"
right,
you know what I mean? Like,
right.
whoa,
right?
And not just that. I'm wondering if this works for you too. But I cannot tell you how many times I have been. It's really only white liberals that have a problem with like race jokes or stuff like that. It's not the black people, it's not the Asian people, it's not the Mexicans. It's white liberals who are trying to protect the poor black guy who can't protect himself. No, don't say those words. Don't believe those things. Don't it bothers me to no end. Because
exactly.
it's that infantilizing. I believe that and the principled thing. There are so many people who I don't necessarily agree 100%. I don't have to agree 100% with someone to respect the fact that they're standing up for what they believe in. And they're willing to come to the table of conversation.
That's right.
And a lot of these leftists are not even willing to come to the table of conversation.
They don't even want the conversation. I mean, they're stomping free speech and feel, noble and justified in doing so.
Right.
Well, whoever thought that we'd arrive at a time in our history where free speech would actually be construed as noble to squelch free speech in America.
Right.
I mean, that is amazing. You have your major media, air quotes, companies doing it. You have your major social media companies doing it, and they feel perfectly justified. Right. And it's just an amazing time that we're living through.
Right. So, are you a Trump fan?
Oh, I'm big time.
Big time. Okay.
And so here's the reasons. Some people ask me, "Yeah, well, Kev, I mean, really, what has Trump done?" I say, "Are you kidding me? Have you looked at the black community lately?" Right. The reality is that this president, this president has done a spectacular job for the black community. Okay. And this is what I have a lot of passion about.
Yeah,
right?
I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And just like you would have passion about the Puerto Rican community or the communities that you come from.
There's none in the Bay Area.
Yeah. I do, don't get me wrong. I want things to be right for all Americans, but when the black community has a special place in my heart. Let's just put it like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when we suffered so horribly during the Obama years, I was livid because, here you had a president that had the opportunity to actually stop a lot of the violence in Chicago. He was from there. Right. He could have went there. He could have worked with Rahm and the other mayor before Rahm took kind of won the election, to actually say, look, we're going to do some marches here. We're gonna put some federal dollars in Chicago. We're really going to stop this endless murderous syndrome that goes on in the city of Chicago. And he did nothing. Okay. He didn't spend a dime. He didn't spend 10 minutes in Chicago to try to stop the violence.
Once he became president.
Once he became president is what I'm saying. And he had the power to do that. He was loved. He was beloved by everybody. Right. And he had the biggest megaphone on the planet, and he could have done something about it. He didn't mutter, 2 sentences about it. So, and not only that, but when you look at his policies, the abusive regulations, the confiscatory taxes, and all of that, it has a disproportionate impact on the economy, and especially the economy of low-wage, low-skilled workers, which, unfortunately, a lot of that, the largest percentage of those would be people of color, right, and mostly black. Right. And so our community suffered horribly, and we had to, a lot of them had to go on welfare, and a lot of them had to go on, food stamps, and so we broke records in those categories, and the past president was lauded for that, and I'm thinking, what's there to laud about, keeping people poor and dependent? Right. That is horrible. That's a horrible state. Right. And so when this president comes in and he immediately slashes regulations, thousands upon thousands of them, frees up the economy, and now and then encourages a lot of manufacturers to move back to the United States and go back into those areas of Detroit and Ohio and a lot of places in the Rust Belt and Pennsylvania, and a lot of people, a lot of places on the east. And now we have these communities that are actually coming up. We have people that are working. We have the lowest black unemployment rate. We have the lowest Hispanic unemployment rate. We have the lowest
record numbers.
We have the lowest women's unemployment rate. We have more people working in America than before in our history. Right. Everybody should applaud that. Even if you don't like this president, the way he talks or the way he tweets, forget that. Right. Let's look at policy. Right. What policy is impacting America? What policy is impacting the black community? What policy is impacting this community or that community? Right. What policy is impacting women? Women should be all over this president saying, thank you for, we have the highest employment rate as women now, and then in history. Right. And so when you just look at policy, not personality, I tell people all the time, look, because when they complain about personality. And I say, we need to be able to be adult enough to clearly demarcate personality from policy.
I completely agree. It is an immaturity to conflate those two things 100%. It's like the cup game, or not the cup game. It's like the whack-a-mole. If they don't like his personality, you address that, and what about Russia, and what about this, and what about that? It's like, calm down, focus on what's actually happening in my life. Yeah. No matter who the president is, often my experience is I still go to Starbucks, I go to work, my life is kind of fine. Yeah. But especially when it's on a real day-by-day basis, things are fine. It's not, my life is not wrapped up in some dude's tweet. Right. You know what I mean? Right. It's not wrapped up in who he had sex with 10 years ago,
Right. And so I just had this conversation a couple days ago. I was meeting with a gentleman. He's a proud Republican, but he says, man, this president caused me a lot of heartburn. I just blah, blah, blah. I said, look, you can say what you want about, his personality. Sure. I get it. It rubs some people wrong. I personally, I like a straight shooter. Yeah. I don't want somebody to smooth talk me, killing me softly. That, to me, when I think of the Obama years, I think of, hey, this guy was, smooth as silk, but that brother was killing me softly, man. He was whispering in my ear and putting a knife in my back the whole time. Right. And, so to speak. Sure. Because our community was suffering at such a horrible rate, right? And so what I'd rather, so I'm not at all into personalities, just at all. I don't care about that anymore. Sure. What I care about for America is our policies. What I care about for America are outcomes. Mm-hmm. What I care about for America is just straight talk me. I've had enough politicians glossing over the truth and making it sound eloquent and smooth. Right. The smoothest cat that we actually had was Bill Clinton. I mean, that brother was a smooth talker. Yeah. And
did you like Bill?
I did. I actually did. I liked him. I don't think I ever voted for him, but I did like him. Mm-hmm. And up until this stuff with Lewinsky came up, but sure. But he was a very smooth character. I'm tired of smooth-talking politicians. Right. I don't care if I ever see one again. I really don't. I'm the kind of a person that wants just be straight with me. Right. Just be straight. And so with Trump, it's refreshing because, Trump doesn't have a governor. He is straight as he's like, look, BS this, that, and he'll let a F-bomb drop if you're not careful, right? Right. I mean, but he wears his emotions on his sleeve. Right. He is not one that's going to be bullied by anybody. Right. And part of that is just where he grew up in New York and all of that, and you sort of get the personality of the environment that he grew up in. Right. But Trump was not a person that was being kicked around in a schoolyard. Right. And he always had to fight for his, and he was always down with the scrap. Mm-hmm. And so I have a lot of respect for that as a martial artist myself, ex-martial artist, and somebody that sort of follows that whole fighting thing because I grew up that way as well. I love that. I just want somebody to be straight, and if it's about a fight, then yeah, let's fight.
Are you originally from the Bay Area?
Yeah, born and raised in San Francisco.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I was actually born in Hunters Point and lived there the first several years of my life. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why I'm asking that is because not just interested in you as a person, but I feel like the San Francisco edge, and maybe similar to all SJWs in general, is that passive aggressiveness. They don't like the upfrontness.
Yeah.
I don't think they do.
Yeah.
I think when I go to New York and when I hang out with people even from the South, there's much more of a exactly where you stand.
Right.
That old joke, a New York no is no, a San Francisco no is maybe, I don't know, and then they won't call you back.
Yeah, it's nuanced and BS, and
right.
I grew up with that, right? Here in Silicon Valley, we can't be straight. You hear, look at the perfect case in point. We have Zuckerberg and Schmidt and all these other guys from all these, Silicon Valley companies who went to Congress, and all it was mealy-mouth BS. They couldn't flat out just tell them, look, hell yes, we're censoring everybody. And I understand why they couldn't. There are just significant implications for that. But when you look at and you sort of distill the hours upon hours of testimony, we didn't learn anything from that. It was like, what was this?
Right.
This is all BS. What happened here? Right. And then our sort of genteel Congress people who are getting money from these companies wouldn't hold their feet to the fire. They'd let them sort of weasel out of the question in a very nuanced way, and then they'd say, I'm satisfied. But they didn't answer any question.
Nothing.
And so, but that's the sort of modus operandi right here. We try to be, politically correct and sensitive and overly sensitive,
but it's all fake.
It's all fake.
I was walking in Palo
ridiculous.
Alto one day to Starbucks. There was a giant mural in Palo Alto. I think I can't remember where it is, but it's on the side of a Starbucks, and it was this black face. I remember that. It was like a African, and I realized like, these Palo Alto people, they want black people in their philanthropy. They want black people in their art. They do not want them in their Starbucks. They do not want them in their streets.
Absolutely not.
But it's this false morality, this blanket, this cloak of going like, oh, I'm a good person because I watched Moonlight. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a good person because Green Book is my favorite movie.
Exactly.
It's lies that they're telling themselves.
Exactly. It's a narcissistic sort of nobility that they carry around because they're down with the underperforming and the downtrodden. But in reality, what they're fundamentally, what I see is racism.
Right. I was speaking of Hunter's Point. I'm a part of this kind of spiritual group, and in this spiritual group, one of these people was talking about, I don't think there's enough diversity in this group, because at each one of these groups, there's a representative sometimes that goes to this once a month meeting, and at that once a month meeting, there's not a whole lot of black people, and someone mentioned, there's not enough diversity. And I just thought, like, when was the last time you went to one of these groups in Hunters Point?
Right.
When was the last time you went to one of these groups in the TL?
Exactly right.
You know what I mean? You want somehow you want to just look, everybody, I'm waving this flag of look at how good I'm thinking about the diversity angle. You haven't stepped one foot in Ingleside.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You
exactly.
don't actually care.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You want to protect yourself. You don't. I don't know.
It's exactly right. I mean, and so we have a lot of that here.
Right.
We have a lot of that in Washington, D.C. I mean, there's a certain decorum and protocol that they really want their politicians to have. And Trump is, notably the bull in a china shop. And he's purposely stomping on all of the fine chinas and say, screw you guys.
Right.
You guys have taken advantage of Americans for far too long. We've trusted you with our life and our treasures, and you've squandered it all these many decades. No, I'm the bull in a china shop, and I'm gonna make sure I find the most precious china, and I'm gonna stomp the crap out of it, because the people in America deserve better. Right. And that's what I can appreciate from a president like this. Right. And when you look at his promises, right? The promises to Israel. Look, I'm going to move the embassy to Jerusalem. We're going to protect the Golan Heights for you. Promises kept. When you look at his promises to the black community, what do you have to lose? Promises kept. When you look at his promises to women, look, we're going to get you working again, and you're going to be able to take care of your families. Promises kept. When you look at his promises to the Hispanic community, a lot of them have been horribly abused and maligned by MS-13 gang members.
Right.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people have this misnomer that MS-13 gang members are just going out wantonly slaughtering, you know, your average American. No, they are literally slaughtering other either illegals or other Hispanics, people who have come up and are newly in this country, other immigrants, and they're being, you know, they're slaughtering these people.
Right.
And if we and what Trump said is, look, we're going to get rid of these animals. We're going to round them up and take them back to other countries. We're going to put them in jail where they belong.
Right.
But we're going to protect these communities. These are vulnerable communities of new immigrants, and yet, of course, we have the Democrats that want to protect the MS-13 because that's a potential vote.
Well, because they are the ones who are actually downright racist.
Right.
He's brown. He must be morally superior.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you're out of your. You don't know any brown people who are bad. It's because you don't know any brown people. You know, it's
exactly right.
ignorance and self-centeredness.
So and so that one's promises kept. He said, "Look, I'm gonna take Rocket Man, and we're gonna put him in." We're going to put a lasso around him, and he's not going to be sending around nukes all over Asia Pacific. And guess what? Promise kept. You know, we haven't had a nuke test from North Korea in over a year.
Right.
So everything that Trump had promised would happen in his first term actually has happened in the first 2 years. I mean, he is moving at light speed without help from a Republican Senate, without help from a Republican, very little help from a Republican Congress, those that are there, and certainly without help from the Democrats and the media and academia and Hollywood. He hasn't had any help from any major segment in America. What this man has done in 2 years is like, it's almost a supernatural occurrence. It's miraculous. Right. I mean, to have no support, not even from your own party for the most of these things, and to get all this stuff done, that's like amazing.
It is.
It's like really phenomenal.
Do you feel, you were talking about Obama not doing enough, these leftist politicians not making sure that these communities stay on the government teat? Do you feel like it's intentional? Like, is there a weird kind of undertow of, get a little into conspiracy theory here, but is it intentional because they want the power of their vote? Is it intentional because they want them either out of the picture, or is it more, I want to look morally superior, or I want to look like I want to make my constituents happy, my voters happy, so I'll do that. Is it darker? No. Is it bigger?
No, as a reformed leftist, and you know, so I grew up in inner city, San Francisco, and very liberal, you know, all my early life. Went to San Jose State with a sociology degree, right? Graduated in sociology. So I get the leftist thing in and out, the Democrat thing in and out. Right. I understand it to the T. So no one can tell me about, you know, how noble they may be in trying to do this or that. Sure. It's always, always, always about power. It's never about principle. And so what they're doing is not about trying to look morally superior or virtuous one way or another. It's always about power.
Okay.
You know, in my opinion, everything they do is calculated around, well, how do we coalesce this into a power move, into a another segment, another segmentation, another demographic that we could somehow harness and use that for our power.
Okay.
It's always power.
Is it a darker intention, though? I mean, there are some guys I've had on the show who
there is
like
a darker. So when you look at so here's the other. Don't get me going on this because I can go on this one. When you look at the scourge of Planned Parenthood, right, and you look at the fact that everybody, especially everybody in Washington, knows about Margaret Sanger. They know
the Planned Parent
founder of Planned Parenthood.
Right.
You do know that story, right? The one who said, the one who hated blacks, spoke a few times at the women's KKK, popularized eugenics, actually spread eugenics to, and eugenics from Sanger was used as justification by Hitler to do what he was doing to the Jews. I mean, so
wow.
A lot of people think eugenics sort of sprang up as some sort of over in Europe and it was popularized over there. It actually started here.
Okay.
And then we sort of exported it to Hitler and those guys.
Sure.
And so when Hitler was throwing 6 million Jews in the furnace, his justification was based upon the eugenics that he had learned from people like Sanger here in the United States, which were the elitist, educated,
right.
Above the fray type. So anyway, so when you have that kind of person and personality in the history that's well documented about her hatred for blacks and all that she has said and done, and yet you go to the annual Planned Parenthood and gleefully accept the Margaret Sanger Award, which both Hillary and Obama did. It used to be back in the day that if you associate with a known racist,
right,
you're a racist.
Right.
Now we have these two people who accepted the Margaret Sanger Award,
right,
and they cheered her, gleefully lauded her,
right,
in all of her dereliction, all of her diabolical deeds, all of her wanton racism against blacks and Hispanics, but mostly blacks. And they gleefully accepted the award, said she's a great woman. Now, it would be like someone going to the KKK, a white separatist camp and accepting a David Duke KKK award.
Right.
What would that person be called? That person would be rightly called a racist.
Right.
So all I'm saying is, we had this happen, and that was diabolically evil. We had then, since that time, the Democrat Party wholeheartedly endorse and encourage and accept Planned Parenthood as a noble organization. Right. Now, they know the roots of Planned Parenthood. Right. They know the fact that Planned Parenthood disproportionately targets black women in order to create, in our current climate, black genocide.
Okay.
So let me explain that a little
Please.
bit more, because you're, some of your listeners may not understand. Here is the actual demographics as they stand today. Approximately 12% of the population of the United States are black.
Right.
Of those that 12%, approximately half are men. So, of course, men can't have babies, or biologically we can't have babies. I know they're changing that, but so let's say 6%. So you got a 6% demographic that the Planned Parenthood can go after. Actually, it's even less than that, because Planned Parenthood, the actual childbearing ages is 15 to let's say 44. Now, if you look at 15 to 44, that's about another half of that 6%. So 3%, an effective 3% of the black community as a population. Planned Parenthood, literally to this very day, are building their clinics 80+% for a 3% demographic. They're all in black communities, urban communities, specifically targeting blacks. And I hear that, well, isn't it supply and demand? And I tell my white friends, bullcrap. Because if it were truly supply and demand, here's what they would do. They would go ahead and look at all the Walmarts across the United States. Mm-hmm. And they would say, look, Walmart caters to majority women and majority childbearing women. They've already done the demographic research for us. All we have to do is put a clinic on the backside of every Walmart in the United States, and we'd be able to cater to women. That is what they would do.
Right.
That is not what they've done.
No.
They've specifically targeted the darkest, skin color darkest, bluest, the
Most
Democrat Party blue, and environments, and they're going in there and they're indiscriminately getting rid of that next generation now. So this is why a lot of people couldn't understand. Well, so what happened with why they're so zealous about the Mexican vote, about the new immigrants coming over, and especially from South America and Mexico. And so I unveiled the whole scheme. This is what happened.
Yes, sir.
This is literally what happened. what they because remember, Obama and Clinton, we have all the clips of them all saying we need border security. Yep. We're going to stop these people from coming over because it's having an impact on our economy, wages, blah, 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 blah. They all understand what was going on.
Right.
But here's what happened. They took a look at the demographics and they said, oh, my God, we've been disproportionately targeting and killing the majority black population for the last 3 decades. Blacks are not reproducing at the number that would keep us in power. Right? So now they've killed approximately 20 million blacks that would have been that next generation voter, because blacks still vote at 97% Democrat. They're looking at that and they say, what in the world did we do? How do we make up that kind of a difference? Tens of millions of voters that we didn't allow to come forward and live, and so therefore our parties, we're going to be out of power.
So you feel like it is knowing, it is known, it is a intention, whether it be you're saying that it is like if Obama and Hillary were by themselves in a room, they would knowingly talk about this versus
knowingly talk about what?
The intention.
The intention.
Knowingly have the intention.
That they absolutely need immigrants because they don't have the numbers?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I have no doubt about it.
Okay.
When you look at their even 8-10 years ago, their past clips, Schumer, Feinstein.
It was.
Just 10 years ago.
It was a great video, a great compilation.
Now the radical shift that, no, by all means, we have to leave the borders open.
Right.
It makes no logical sense, policy-wise or otherwise. It makes no sense whatsoever. They had actually cogent arguments back in the day, 8-10 years ago. And that said, look, we can't allow these people here. We have to be able to account for who's coming across the border. We have some national security concerns. We have concerns about human traffic. We have MS-13. Everything. They were cogent in laying out the case for having to close the border. Right. Now it's absolutely, they cannot. They just cannot. And the reason why they cannot is because they just don't have the numbers. They did the demographics. They understand blacks are not reproducing. Blacks are not even reproducing to be a viable demographic in the next 50 years. Right. We have a reproduction rate less than, I think it's 1.6 or 1.4%. And in order for any race to reproduce itself, it has to be greater than 2.1, something to that effect. And so we're well under the reproductive that would keep us around for the next 100 years. We're just not going to be here. So, and that doesn't mean we won't be here in some variation. I mean, there's a lot of intermarriages going on and stuff like that. We'll be here, but as a real African American, true African American heritage going back with no intermarriages, that particular demographic won't be here 100 years now. Right. So anyway, so they took a look at that and they said, we don't have a choice. We must, in order to survive as a party, we must allow open borders so we can get as many immigrants as we can. Right? And here's why I know it's a purposeful strategic scheme. The people that are welcoming these new immigrants when they get across the border are every single one of them, all wildly radical leftist organizations. They're giving these people not only the potential toiletries that they need, but they're giving them what they need to say. They're giving them a civics lesson, so to speak. And when the time to vote comes around, they're saying, you must vote Democrats because we're the good guys. We actually want you here. So they're doing all of this in a very strategic and purposeful way. Right when these people just arrive here, these people are being inundated with people talking at them and say, okay, you got to say this. Oh, and by the way, when we have votes in a few, you got to vote Democrat. And here's how our, I mean, they're giving them the entire deal.
Which is blank, because I've said it so many times. I actually know Mexican people who are brown as brown can be, and they don't like that gay stuff. You know what I mean? Like they don't like, so they're not even with the same agenda that these leftists are saying that, brown must be, racist, they just put them right in a corner, right? Like a lot of those guys, they don't like the trans stuff. They don't like the gay stuff. They don't like the, and when it comes down to
they don't like abortion.
And they don't like, they're really not going to like when the taxes are up so high. They don't want to give their money to the government. So they're not even setting themselves up for longevity.
Not longevity. What they need is they need to keep that gravy train just long enough. Because here's what happens. There's a couple things that happen. They have So typically what happens is they have all of the young millennial types, from 18 to maybe about 32 to 35.
Okay.
And then they have the overwhelming majority of that group.
Right.
And then what happens is usually when people get 30-ish, maybe
They start
35,
to wake up. Yeah.
they start to wake up and say,
They start to have a
I'm
kid.
paying
They
too
start
much in
to-
taxes.
yeah.
We're doing too much for other people. We're not taking care of our own community, blah, blah, blah. And they start to switch.
Right.
And so they have that, and that's been happening for decades. They've known that. That's a well-known fact that people, as you get older, you start to wise up a little bit, and you do
It's
switch
humanity,
bodies.
right?
Yeah. And then and so what happens is, but what they do know for a fact is that low-skilled, low-educated immigrants who come over, if they can be the first in their face and give them the sort of the marching rules and the game plan for how to make it here in America, and this is what you need to do, that they have a 10, 15 year horizon before those people wake up. And so what they're looking for are just enough bodies that they can overwhelm the ballot boxes for the next decade or so.
Right.
Because for them it's power. It's always power.
Who, as far as so far, and obviously it's only June of 2019, but so far, who looks like an actual threat? Personally, I don't think anybody is a genuine threat to Trump in 2020. I think they're going to once they put their weight behind somebody, they keep changing their mind. First it was Biden, and now they're getting on him about something. And Warren is kind of, I don't know about that. Booker bothers me deeply. But like a lot of I don't see anyone on the horizon who's going to be like good or who I would vote for, number one, and number two is an actual threat.
Yeah. So I'm with you. I don't really see an actual threat, and the reason why is because they're so radicalized.
Right.
I think that if the Starbucks guy, if they would have given him the opportunity to have a platform there, he was actually somewhat of a reasonable, thoughtful,
businessman. He
could have probably have made a way, but you have to. Here's the thing. They keep sort of bludgeoning Trump with the fact that he lost the popular vote by about 3 million votes. If you look at the numbers, and that was with a lot of radical feminists and leftists that were zealous about Hillary. I mean, they were really. There is nobody in this election that has that, in my opinion, that comes close to the Hillary persona, and the zeal for Hillary.
Right.
And that could change, but even with that, we did not have a track record with Trump. We didn't have an economy.
Right.
We didn't have blacks that would actually stand up to other blacks and say, that's my boy there. I'm going to vote for him.
Right.
Now we do.
Yeah.
Now we do.
Really
we have Blexit.
Right.
We have
the walk away campaign.
Yeah,
with the
walk
gays
away
and
campaign.
trans. We have.
They're making, and I know for a fact they're making more than a 3 million vote difference. Because remember, Trump lost by about 3 million votes. I think all of these movements that have sprouted up, plus the economy, is going to make a greater than the $3 million vote difference.
Right.
So I think that Trump is going too far, because we had a lot of never Trumpers at the time too. Now probably half of them have actually come around. There's still some diehard never Trumpers.
Sure.
But half of them have come around at least, and could be more. So when you factor all of that in, and factor that we're either going to be free market and capitalist or socialist, I don't really think it's going to be close.
Right.
I think he has an opportunity to run the tables to such a degree that certainly with popular vote, I think he'll win that. And he may even pick up some of these blue states.
Yeah.
He may.
Right. And I think ultimately people are sick of it. I had a guy on my show yesterday, Asian cat, who the reason why I had him on, he's just a friend or a fan of my music. And I had this conversation. I had posted this funny racial meme on Instagram, and then I had this long conversation with a musician friend of mine, white liberal guy, who was like, "Oh, really? I can't believe you posted that," and and it was like an hour of me like, I'm not racist. We've broken bread together. I slept at your house. I'm not. I'm half Puerto Rican. Would you calm down? And just had this conversation about humor and about free speech. And I got off the phone, and I'm just kind of annoyed, and I'm kind of I have those type of things, and I'm sure you've had this in your own business life, but where being a musician, being an artist, being a podcaster, it's a very lonely world. When you're a doctor, you go to X amount of there's an exact path, and with doing this stuff, there is no exact path. It's me out in the wilderness going, let's see if this works.
Yeah.
And so I had this feeling like I knew I was doing the right thing, but I felt like maybe that was a misstep, And then this Asian guy who follows me on Facebook was like, "LOL" to the racist meme, and it was an Asian meme, it was a joking meme. Yeah. And so we started this conversation, and I had him on yesterday, and he talked about how no, I don't mind it because it's humorous, what I mean? It's just funny. And why did I start talking about that? I guess ultimately I find that. Oh, that was what we were talking about, is that people, honestly, white people especially, are kind of sick of feeling guilty. They're sick of feeling like conservatives are sick of feeling guilty of being labeled racist just because they don't want illegal immigration.
Right.
Or that they're heartless because they don't want the baby to die. Yeah. Especially being called misogynist because like I talked about this all the time. I don't care about a woman's body. It's your body. Yeah. I care about the body inside of the body.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like no one in the whole conversation at the big social media level, at the big media level is even mentioning that fact. They just assume if you're against abortion, you want to control women. I don't want to control women. I just don't want that thing to die. That's all. And there's nuance to it, whatever.
I've had some talks with some of my more liberal friends, and they said, "Look, you're a man, you don't understand." I said, you're being presumptive. I said, right now, because you popularized, the gender fluidity. Right now, I'm talking to you as a woman.
Right, exactly.
Woman to woman.
Right, exactly.
And then they were like, well.
And there's
they don't know what to do with that.
There's large percentages of women who are against abortion. So what do you say to them? They start to danger, Will Robinson.
Right.
They start to short circuit, and they say, well, they must be women. Those women must be brainwashed.
Right.
Like, are you that childish? You can't step back from your own opinions and ideas for 2 seconds.
Right.
As a libertarian, ultimately, like I love gay people, but I also love guns. I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm not all the way right, and I'm not all the way left. I'm willing to, number one, take myself with a grain of salt because I've been wrong many times, and I take others with a grain of salt. I take those opinions and I step back from them. I'm willing to listen. I don't want to get so staunch in my beliefs. And ultimately, that's where the childishness angle is. This social media thing is not helping our childishness as a human race. The fact that someone can just completely hang on to their feelings before they, like that Chris Rock bit. If you make up your mind before you even hear the argument, you're a dummy. You know what I mean?
We've lost our sense of humor. We've become too politically correct. It's a sad. Right. It's a sad time where you can't even speak your true feelings because you may hurt somebody else's feelings.
Right. But I think I have a lot of hope, and I know there are some liberal friends and fans who listen to this who are bothered by what I'm about to say. I'm absolutely voting for Trump right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I may change my mind, but I feel great hope in at least he's not browbeating me for believing what I believe.
Right.
At least he's not trying to label me as a horrible piece of crap just because at least there's somebody who's interested in, like, honestly, you're a father, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So you know that I'm not calling Trump daddy, but what I am saying, as a father, sometimes you have to be the bad guy and get done what needs. Someone needs to feed you.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
I'm sorry, you can't have the Lamborghini.
Right.
We're gonna, if you are gonna have we're gonna get you a nice, safe little PT Cruiser, like Breaking Bad. You know what I mean? Like this is. I know I'm a bad guy. Well, at least you're being fed. Yeah, at least you're being taken care of.
That's right.
You're welcome for this house. You know what I mean? Like, and someone needs to do that.
That's right.
That's right.
Right.
And not. and it's selfish as a father. I'm not a father, but if a father or mother, I think it's selfish for them to go, what do you want? Let me live by your whim, because it's fear and it's self-centeredness, and they don't want to just stand up and be the bad guy. Be the bad guy. That's what adults do.
That's exactly right. We need more responsible parenting.
Yeah.
Top to bottom. Yeah, that means within households. That means for those that do have fiduciary and judiciary responsibility, that they need to exercise in a way that's really supportive of helping people be responsible and become adults and all that. Really helping America grow up, as opposed to being perpetual infants. We need more of that, and I think Trump has put his foot down, and he's breaking the mold. I mean, he's breaking the mold. Every possible mold that Washington had is now being broken.
And thank God that, the reality is too, is that we're only 250 years old. You know what I mean? And yet we have been a beacon, and that's not blind patriotism. It's legit. We are the best place in the world right now.
Absolutely.
We are the best. I can't even fathom going to England and just the crap that goes on in England, even in Canada and England. These other very quote unquote progressive and Western civilizations are slowly turning into this lack of free speech and the socialism and all that stuff. Thank God we live in a place like this.
It's incredible. Yeah,
that I can be responsible for.
Still the best place in the world that people would put their lives at risk and their livelihood at risk to try to get here. That tells you something. People, the white leftist, radical liberal Democrat on the other side would like to paint America as a horrible place that really just took advantage of colonization, and now we owe reparations to everybody in the world. Right. But the fact is that you still have people that are coming from near and far. As far away as Africa and Bangladesh, they're coming through our southern border because look, they feel that it's very much worth the risk of trying to get here. This is the place. There is no better place in the world.
Right. And a quick word to that liberal racism too is that idea that when in this conversation of just let them in, no one ever talks about why Mexico sucks. You know what I mean? Why does Mexico suck? It's almost like an assumed, well, they're brown, they can't help it. Right. I hate that stuff. I really do. Anyway, we've been talking for about an hour. You want to?
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well,
you want to wrap up? You want to break? What do you want to do?
We could wrap if your segments are about an hour, right?
Yeah, sometimes an hour and a half, sometimes 45 minutes, sometimes 3 hours.
I have a hard. What time is it right now?
Oh, I think it's.
Let me look at my watch.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have it 2:00. So
okay,
we probably better.
Okay, cool. Is there anything you would like to promote? I'd love to have you talk about your institution or your. Dang it, I messed up the word. What was it? Talk
Frederick
more about
Douglass
your foundation. Thank you.
So for those listeners that want to sort of plug in and learn more about the various organizations I'm a part of, the Frederick Douglass Foundation of California, and the website for that is fdfca.org, and there's also fdfnational.org. And then the other one is the Douglass Leadership Institute, and that's a 501c3. It's an educational institute, and we go out to various parts of the country and try to help people just to. We take apolitical positions, but we try to encourage people to learn more about Douglass, and that's dlinstitute.org.
Okay.
So. For both those organizations, we could certainly use support, and would love to encourage all of your listeners and viewers to come out and visit us there.
And you have events. You have what's the ways to support? Is it financial or is it?
Yeah, the financial mostly. There's a donate button there and stuff like that. And then stay tuned. There's a couple things that I'm doing social media wise that could have a big impact on the censor sphere that we're all enduring with all of the major supposed social media platforms. And so there'll be some additional things I want to talk about probably next time when we connect.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you can find me on Instagram at Peter_Feliciano. Keep August 17th in your calendars because that is going to be my big album release party at Brick and Mortar Music Hall in San Francisco. August 17th, be there. I'll talk more about it on the show coming up. And you can support this podcast at patreon.com/conservatish. Share this with your friends. Subscribe right now down there at the bottom of the screen or on Spotify or wherever you're listening now. And we really, I really appreciate you coming on, Kevin.
Awesome.
Thank you
Well,
so much.
My pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.
I'm honored to have been here. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
God bless.
Bye.
Bye.